but it'll end up the imbalance will kind of start accumulating and then put you in a position of injury or put you at a higher risk of injury. And by doing stuff like this that involve multiple muscle groups working together as a chain, shoulders. And so I feel like I've been able to get into sandbag training without fearing injury because over the years I've paid a lot of. All right, y'all, it's time for another video. So today's Saturday, December 15th. It will probably be my first back-to-back uploads in a pretty long time. Um, anyway, all that besides the point. Today I'm focusing on mobility. Um, Yesterday's workout was quite brutal, so my energy levels are not particularly high. Um, so on days and just in general, like I like to follow up a high intensity day with. I still work out every day, but I'll like do something that's lower volume, more slow pace, less heavy, kind of allowing my body to recover, but still performing movements that I think would aid recovery rather than if I was sedentary the whole day. So yeah, today, like when I first started the channel, there used to be a lot of mobility videos, and then I think somewhere along the line, I stopped making as many mobility focused videos, and just like my training didn't have as much of a concentrated mobility component, I just kind of threw it in between a larger workout. But today it's going to be like a completely mobility and like core focused workout. So yeah, let's get right to it. So I'm using this machine. You can emulate the same thing with like a rope handle on a cable machine. I just like the fact that I can hold this in whatever you want to call this grip. And yeah, I'll just get to the exercise. So, whatever hand's holding the cable, the opposite knee goes to the floor. I'm using a pad to kind of soften uh, whatever, soften the impact. It's not really an impact, soften the pressure, I guess, on the knee. And so the starting position is this. The cable is pulling my hand forward, which activates my lats. My knee is on the floor. And if you were using the rope, you would want to just hold one side of the rope. You want like a long handle. Then let it pull yourself forward. As it pulls you forward, you will notice the back legs hip flexor gets stretched. Then I move back, row, grab the top of the cable, and row with the opposite hand. So now there's a lot of muscles and a lot of muscles that play and a lot going on at the same time. Then release, release, and repeat. So it's a hip flexor stretch. You're also stretching out your glutes and your lat. Your knee also, your quads also goes through a full knee bend. Then as you go back and you row, the lats get activated, and then here you're performing like a spinal rotation and a row with the opposite hand. I'm choosing to do this really slow and controlled, and really trying to mentally connect with uh, the whole muscular chain. So pretty much every muscle in your body is connected through this tissue called the fascia. And by performing movements such as these that involve the contraction and stretching of multiple muscle groups, you'll you'll notice that you're really able to mentally connect with uh, multiple muscle groups at the same time. And when you do that, you're able to notice like imbalances in your body. And if you don't pay attention to those and try to rectify them, you end up performing all your exercises with in an imbalanced way. It might look correct externally, but it'll end up the imbalance will kind of start accumulating and then put you in a position of injury or put you at a higher risk of injury. And by doing stuff like this that involve multiple muscle groups working together as a chain, you're able to slowly kind of unwind some of these things, or at least that's how I feel. And the rotation aspect of this also targets the rotational muscles in the trunk, like the obliques, and your core has to stay activated the whole time. Another thing that I'm focusing on is not letting my hips kind of relax. I'm keeping my core tight. And then as I row with the backhand, I'm kind of like flaring out the front lat by almost elbowing the sky, if that makes sense. Going for 8 to 10 on each side. I believe this was the seventh rep. You can choose to do it a little bit more explosively, but that like something like this. But that, but at least today, my goal is more to like really focus on the contraction, really feel the stretch, like so when I take my time with these movements, like I notice the tightness, and when there's a tightness, you can like consciously think of the tight area and then slowly try to relax it. And then when you do that, you're able to loosen up uh, the tightness, which ends up making you more mobile over time. And then some other intricacies is as I'm at the top position, I'm like internally rotating my arm to flare out the lat. Uh, then as I'm rowing, I'm rotating my palms inward. Then with the opposite hand, again, I'm catching it in a position where I can rotate my arm as I'm rowing it, and then release. So yeah, given high enough resistance, you'll also feel like the movement's quite taxing on the lats as well. But yeah, so now repeating on the other side. There's something about like taking the time to feel these contractions that make you really aware of how your body is working. I feel like my body awareness from when I first started lifting to now has improved tremendously, mostly because of paying attention to movements such as these. Um, like stuff like kettlebell exercises or even club bell exercises, where there are so many components at play in a movement. It really teaches you how the whole body has to work together as a unit in order to facilitate the facilitate the accurate movement of the body. And when you do stuff like this, like really slow, we're able to notice things within the chain of muscles that aren't operating as they should. And at least personally, whenever I've paid attention to hip flexor mobility, it has always paid good dividends in like everyday movement and stuff like that. Anyway, yeah, give this movement a shot. I think it's really cool for uh, hip and like the hip lat connection and then just overall hip mobility. Going to do this for 5 to 6 sets, then on to the next one. For the next movement, doing uh, staggered stance, kettlebell, Zercher, Jefferson. So I'm gonna have the kettlebell on my elbow, so left elbow here. I'm doing so like if the kettlebell is on the left side, I'm kind of putting the left leg a little step back, and then I'm going to round slowly at the spine and reach behind the back of my head, and then round back up. If you've been following for a while, you know that I do like barbell Jefferson curls and then a lot of like two-handed Jefferson stuff. Kind of, kind of want to focus on the rounding of the spine using unilateral loading, and so I'm doing it this way. This kind of movement really helps strengthen the spine and also make you feel a lot more comfortable in movements like the deadlift and stuff. So a lot of people when they do a deadlift, one of their fears is that they're going to injure their spine. And usually that happens because they're not used to the idea of uh, their spine getting rounded, and so the spine's never trained in a rounded position under load. By doing movements such as these, that are slow and controlled with reasonable enough resistance, where you train the spine to be in a rounded position under load. It then carries over into movements such as the sandbag, uh, where you kind of have to round your spine to pick up the sandbag, and also to like, and then the opposite way to get it onto your shoulders. And so I feel like I've been able to get into sandbag training without fearing injury, because over the years I've paid a lot of attention on movements such as this, focusing on the mobility of the spine and the rounded position. Going for 6 on each side. With a lot of mobility exercises, I'm not really focused on too high of a rep count. I more so am going for the quality of the rep and how deeply I'm able to mind muscle connect with the muscles that are involved in the movement. I found that having that sort of an outlook towards the movement has given me greater mobility gains. I'm trying to spend a lot more time in the quote unquote stretched or loaded position, and spending more time in the loaded position seems to uh, result in or convert into more mobility gains. And better mobility in the long run will result in better muscle gain too. It will allow you to get into deeper stretch positions in various exercises. And it'll also make you more comfortable handling heavier loads. And heavier loads means more volume. It also means that your muscles will have to get bigger in order to uh, be able, bigger and thicker to handle heavier loads. So yeah, doing this for now, like 4 to 5 sets, and then on to the next thing. So with the first mobility exercise, I was training a little bit of hip flexor, stretching, a little bit of spine rotation, and a little bit of lats and hips. With the second one, the Zercher Jefferson, it was like unilateral focus on spinal flexion or the rounding of the spine, and also a little bit of hamstrings. Now, with this exercise, I'm doing cross bench pullovers, and then I'm going to add an additional component to it as a superset by just focusing more on opening up the chest and kind of stretching out the lats, which helps with, like, let's say, front squat mobility and just like to keep an open chest. So, using a Bosu ball on a box and then two 10-pound kettlebells, going to place my back on the Bosu ball, such that like the center of it is kind of expanding my chest, and then going to bring one arm down, take a big inhale while it's in the bottom position, and then activating the lats and serratus, stretching it out. While the weight's in the bottom position, I also like to sink my hips a little and then kind of do like a hip thrust as I'm bringing the weight up. You'll find that this further exaggerates the stretch a little. I'm going to do this 5 times on each side. So those were unilateral. Now doing it bilaterally, which means both kettlebells at once. I'm doing 3 of those. After that, on this box slash, I don't know, an elevated surface, going to place both my elbows on it, and then slow. So essentially what this does is it keeps the lats in a stretch position. So if you're someone that does Olympic weightlifting or does front squats or something like that and are struggling with keeping the weight on your, I guess, shoulders in like this position, this will kind of help with that. And essentially from here, I just make sure my hips are in line. By hips are in line, I mean some people have like hiked hips, which is one hip is higher than the other. I try to make sure all of that's relaxed. Um, Otherwise, I'm just stretching in an awkward position, which just, I think, further exaggerates the imbalance. So I take a moment here to take, um, I guess, account of where everything is. And then from here, I'll like slowly sink my hips down. And then what happens as I slowly sink my hips down is my elbows are higher relative to the rest of the body. And this will slowly exaggerate the stretch of the lat. And this opens up the chest. I'm trying not to let my hips relax, keeping my core tight, keeping my transverse abdominis active, and then come back up. Oh. Oh. Now doing like 3 to 5 reps of this. The goal again is quality over quantity, and the like spend doing it really slow, to like slowly open up the body and be so that it's like receptive to the position. When you do these things too quick, the body kind of tries to default back into the imbalanced position. When you slowly introduce your body to the position, it, at least personally, I feel like it is a lot more receptive to the uh, new mobility. It's a good thing that this was my last set. So yeah, that's what I'm finishing off with. So yeah, a good little active recovery mobility day. And yeah, that's all for today's video. See you all in the next one.